I've been doing some research, you know what I'm saying? I was doing some research for my next case for Go because it's been a minute. And I came across Death Note because Death Note's a really great series, but I felt like Death Note wasn't necessarily like case for Go caliber. And then that got me to thinking. And I was like, why isn't Death Note widely considered one of the greatest of all time? So, a lot of people do think Death Note was great, you know what I'm saying, amazing. But when we talk about amazing series, you know what I'm saying, like One Piece or Full Metal Alchemist or Attack on Titan, I feel like Death Note is like a tier below that. This is my case study on the rise and fall of Death Note.
Because I'm Kira.
Before we talk about the fall of Death Note, we obviously got to talk about the rise of Death Note. And the rise of Death Note, obviously, like what made Death Note an amazing series and what gave it the potential to be, one of the greatest anime of all time. So one of the great, things about Death Note, at least starting out, was the fact that it had one of the most captivating starts in anime. So when you talk about anime, a very important thing with anime or even fiction in general is how it starts. The way a series starts is very, very, very important. And Death Note, honestly, has probably one of the best starts in anime, in my opinion, because it's a short-running anime. Naturally, it has to grab your attention. And with Death Note, it grabbed your attention really, really quickly, in a great way. In the first 2 episodes, we got the plot, the goal, the main protagonist, and the main antagonist. When you think about anime, that's a huge deal because a lot of times, even with shorter-running anime, it takes you a while for us to understand the whole idea of what's happening. Think about how many anime you've seen where the main antagonist, or even the name damn protagonist, isn't introduced for a while. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but with Death Note, it made it very, very easy for newcomers and people who weren't watching to understand what's going to happen and what the end goal is. We got introduced to Light Yagami, who's the main character, who wants to make this ideal perfect world, right? We got introduced to L, who's the detective, and he obviously wants to solve the case and beat Kira. We have the goal, the protagonist, and the antagonist. So it's very, very easy for us to follow along. Just the premise of it made us very, very interested and enticed on what's going to happen. One thing that was really, really great about the series that started the series off amazingly was the Light and L rivalry. So a lot of series have rivalries, right? You know what I'm saying? Like we could go through countless rivalries in anime, but the Light L rivalry was really, really amazing because I think Light was definitely tweaking. He was not a good guy per se, but neither was L, right? So we have these two characters that are basically, I think it's probably the first 10 episodes where Light and L have this little speech where they're like, I'm gonna beat L. Well, Light's basically saying, I'm gonna beat L, and L's basically saying, I'm gonna beat Light. And they're basically saying, oh, I'm gonna do this because I am justice. And it's like, it's very interesting because although we have a main protagonist and a main antagonist, it's not necessarily white and black. Like it's not a good and evil type thing, because in their opinion, they're both doing what's right. The game of cat and mouse that Light and L play is very, it's very similar to Batman and Joker, but I just like the twist of the fact that they're both kind of geniuses, using everything from the Shinigami to the police force, using everything to kind of trick each other to gain an upper hand. Like I think there's even a video by I think maybe Seth the Programmer, where he talks about how many times L outsmarted Light and vice versa, and that's just a cool little tally you can keep while watching the show. Very, very interesting. You know what I'm saying? Let me put it like this. I'm a battle shonen head. Like I wouldn't say I'm a meathead necessarily, because one, that sounds crazy, and two, like I can get a little analytical from time to time, but for me, battle shonen are kind of where it's at. Like I've always been kind of attached to that in that sense. Death Note was probably one of the first anime that I watched that wasn't like a battle anime, and it still kept my focus, right? And I think a big reason for that is the great suspense. There's a scene where Light basically loses his memory, and we get to see Light working with L, Light doesn't have his memory, and he's working with L, and it's a whole crazy thing. It's just like, dang, we see how Light would have been if he didn't get the Death Note, and then Light basically gets his memory back in a certain scene. We basically find out that Light planned, not only obviously he planned to lose his memory, but he planned how he would act with his memory gone. So he made provisions so that the memory lost Light would be able to gain his memory back at the exact time he needed it to. And it was just mind-blowing shit. Death Note really did that really great early on, where they would take basic scenes and make it super crazy by off of suspense. Obviously, check the chip scene if you've seen Death Note. That's like a really popular scene that everyone knows about. The Light, L, all that stuff, all the suspense, everything that had to do with it really made Death Note on the verge of becoming, in my opinion, an anime very, very deserving of being, on the case for GOAT. But, you know what I'm saying, there's a reason why I'm kind of shaky on Death Note being there, and that's, we're gonna get to that with the falls of Death Note. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, you know what I'm saying? I know you're watching the video, but yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications, all that good stuff, you know what I'm saying? I always post anime videos whenever I have time. Definitely subscribe and stay subscribed because, you know what I'm saying, there's more anime content on the way. But yeah. A big part of, as you know, I spoke about the L and Light rivalry a lot because I feel like that was a huge part of the series. Like the first 2 episodes, we basically got introduced to their rivalry, and in a lot of people's opinion, the prime of the show was them. So when you kill off L and, you know, the series doesn't end, and I think the series goes on for like what, another 10, 20 episodes, it's not gonna feel the same. And even if you get characters to kind of replace him, which is, you know, Nier and Mello, even though like they're their own characters, the fact that, you know, they're replacing L, who was just this great, unique character, and they kind of have little pieces of L, it just made them like seem like shadows of L, you know what I'm saying? But they could never fit in the shadow because they're not L. So you add on the fact that the rivalry of L and Light ends, but the series doesn't end. It makes, you know, Death Note kind of not feel stale, but it was like, okay, so it's not the same anymore. The whole cat and mouse game is not the same. You throw in I guess you could say 2 cat, which is Mello and L, or Mello and Nier, or Mello and N, but it's just, they're not the same because they're not L. That was a big part of why I think Death Note really kind of fell off a little bit towards the end. But I feel like what made the Light and L rivalry so great is that even though it was pretty clear, at least in my opinion, that L was probably smarter than Light, Light was still holding his own. He was a manipulative genius. And I feel like after L died, Light, I don't want to use the word lamer because that sounds so like dumb, but Light became lamer in the sense that he was making mistakes that, you know, I feel like earlier on Light would not have made. And that shouldn't necessarily drastically affect the series, but because the series is about Light, L, and, you know, the other main characters, the fact that L died and then Light, he was supposed to be this crazy genius, but he's no longer as analytical. It almost made the show feel dumber because what would happen was Light would make dumb mistakes, and it's like, okay, so this is a mistake he should not have made. He would not have normally made. He got caught up by Nier and Mello because of that mistake, and it's like it just made the show, whereas the show was it seemed like you had a classic case of like a Batman Joker detective type show. It made the show just seem so much dumber, and it lost its flair. It lost its luster. I think the way they did Light and L in terms of their death scenes was honestly pretty anticlimactic. So we're talking about the Light and L rivalry, right? A lot of people, you know, were rooting for L. A lot of people were rooting for Light. So people kind of want to see how it would end. You know what I'm saying? Would L's superior, you know, intelligence win him the case, or would Light's intelligence and, you know, supernatural abilities allow him to make the perfect world? So we were looking at both sides and seeing which way it would happen. And I guess you could, Light definitely obviously won, right? You can't even like argue that. But it just kind of it felt a little cheap in my opinion how Light won, considering that he won and then he still wasn't able to, like, he outsmarted the smartest person in the entire world, and then he still didn't win the case. So it was like, bro, like, what's happening? He still couldn't make his perfect world, or at least I guess he made it for a little second, but he didn't get to make his perfect world, like the show didn't end type thing. And then you look at how Light was done, and it was like, bro, it just made like Light got outsmarted by Nier and Mello, and it was just like, this is how we end this crazy cat and mouse game, you know what I'm saying? Obviously I haven't seen a crazy array of anime and stuff, but it was like, so this is how we want the series of Death Note to end. When we were introduced early on to these 2 characters, Light and L, these 2 geniuses, and I feel like both of their deaths they both kind of got hoed, and it was like, more so for Light. It just felt like the way they ended the cat and mouse game was just not like, I don't think it was fulfilling. We know that L ultimately won technically because, you know, Light died, but it just didn't feel like the proper way I feel like the series should have ended, especially with the way it started with Light and L going at it. So I feel like because of these reasons, while Death Note is still a great series, it's not widely considered, you know, one of the greatest of all time. I feel like Death Note is kind of not a waste of potential, but it's not as great as I feel like it should have been. So that's kind of why Death Note isn't, why I didn't initially have Death Note, you know, and giving it a case for GOAT or whatever. But if you do think Death Note deserves a case for GOAT, you know what I'm saying, let me know, because I can't make that. Because I, you know, was talking to some people, and, you know, maybe I am underestimating how great Death Note is. Maybe it still deserves that case for GOAT, even, you know, though it ended a certain way. Let's just put it like that. But yeah, thanks for watching, you know what I'm saying? Alright, so peace.